During the pandemic, the right wing went on an insane crusade to be completely and absolutely anti public health. Because unfortunately, none of these idiots, when they were bringing up the whole, well, we shouldn't go into lockdown, we shouldn't be isolating, you know, they were forgetting the main reason why we were doing this. These lockdown measures, these quarantine measures were all about trying to stem the flow and spread, of the virus at the time, of course, that being COVID. And the really worrying thing is, and has been, is that the right is on a crusade, on a massive crusade, that should we ever face a massive outbreak again, they are insistent. They are insistent that never again, never again will we lock down. That lockdown was like the worst thing ever. The reality was we could have all, just gone out and enjoyed ourselves during COVID. We'd all have been perfectly fine. Meanwhile, of course, if you actually look at the data in America of the red states versus the blue states, because the blue states took lockdowns, mask mandates, etc., really seriously and got on with, the serious business of, trying to, do public health versus the red states that didn't. And the death toll is obvious. There are far more deaths in red states in America than there were in blue. And this was because they were following along and dancing to all this right-wing tune of, you don't need to lock down, you don't need to wear masks, you don't need to have that vaccine, even though having the vaccine, incredibly good. But there you go. But now Farage now seems to be going on a new tirade, because now, according to Nigel Farage, the UK now needs to leave the World Health Organization. Just, Nigel Farage's internal complete legacy is all about leaving things, never about actually, building or creating something. It's always about, well, we should actually leave this. We shouldn't do net zero. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. But anyway, yeah, this is really, really dumb. And it's very obvious that people like Farage don't really know or understand what they're talking about when it comes to sort of things like the World Health Organization, what they do, the type of sort of information that they're sort of responsible for. The fact that really one of the things the World Health Organization has done recently coming out of the pandemic, why Farage has responded to this, is because they came out and said, okay, here's our big report about lessons learned from the pandemic. And one of the things it says is that countries needed to work more closely together. That if there had been maybe a bit more of a united response, things might have been a bit better. Maybe we still have gone into sort of lockdowns, but maybe the response would have been a bit better. And of course, what's Farage coming out with? Well, you might have, you might have heard this one before. Sovereignty. Yes, sovereignty. Apparently agreeing to anything that the World Health Organization might say or suggest or anything like that is somehow now an attack on UK sovereignty. So this is so ridiculous. Honestly, it's one of the things that are like just so insane that he's going through and trying to sort of respond to this, because he's trying to say that they are going to strip away once again the UK's decision making powers. Um, it's not the World Health Organization always and has been very much, you know, we are going to sort of monitor and look at pandemics around the world, and we're going to make recommendations as to what and what and should countries should be doing. Having an organization like the WHO is incredibly good. One of the worst things actually that we should really be working for is to try and get the WHO and China to be working close together. Now, eventually, China did let the WHO into these areas where COVID first started, and finally, you know, allowed them to get on with what they were doing. But initially, they did not allow them in, which the WHO said in its sort of initial response slowed them down, slowed their response down. And of course, as we start to see, the pandemic spread, they really sort of start to get to grips with it. But if they'd been allowed into China sooner, they'd been allowed to sort of find out, do the research, maybe they themselves could have had a greater response. But of course, that was all down to more China's reluctance to sort of engage with the WHO. Now, hopefully, in the future, that will change. Um, hopefully we don't have, anything else, in the near future, as many people have said. We hope that that was just, a once in a generational thing that we've just seen, that we won't maybe see it again for, um, a couple of decades at least. But hey, you never know about these things. They can just, crop up out of nowhere. But honestly, Farage and the right one going after this is really worrying. Uh, this is exactly the same tactics that we see them now using to try to leave the European Court of Human Rights. And yet, I think here, and it should be really called out and really going against sort of Farage and what he says, because a lot of these things are really astroturfed. So, in fact, this new group that is now anti World Health Organization are actually apparently linked to another group called Save My Vape. um, yeah. So this is honestly a massive disinformation campaign that's currently going out, and Farage appears to be a key spreader now of this misinformation about the World Health Organization, about the stuff they're doing. But of course, remember, Farage was massively anti lockdown. Um, but that's not too surprising if you look back at his comments and stuff he was saying at the time. But there you go. But are we surprised he's now trying to find a new fight for relevancy? No. Unfortunately, so long as Farage lives, he will constantly rear his head at almost every single thing the right wing tries to do, and tries to sort of influence people. And I can guarantee you there's loads of dark money flowing into Farage's pockets to say these types of things. We really shouldn't be surprised. But hey, there you go. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.